Well, a very good afternoon to you, and welcome to today's episode of Xandermonium, the talk show that gets you talking. I'm your host, Xander Gibb, and on today's show, I will be breaking down the hottest news items with my guest co-host, Joe Messina, host of The Real Side. So more to come in a mere moment. Apologies right off the bat. We're having problems getting the chat room up and running. I think it's because I have a new computer, but we will endeavor to keep trying to open the chat room for you so you can join in. But still feel free to call in with your questions, 347-884-9061. That's 347-884-9061. Or you can find us on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @Xander Gibb. That's XanderGibb. And you can also get Joe on Twitter too, and his Twitter handle is @Joe Messina. That's JoeMessina. Tweet me if you're too shy, and I will make your point for you. Oh, yes, indeed, I will. So this week, as I said, I finally got a new laptop, and those of you that know me are fully aware of how resistant I truly am to change. Now, thinking I was getting a 10% discount on my purchase due to the hugely ridiculous amount my sister and I spent at the store last time, I was furious to learn that actually you have to use any discounts within 3 months of your previous purchase, which they don't tell you when encouraging you to spend your hard-earned money. So take notice, Best Buy. You are not the Best Buy. You're a bunch of dishonest snake oil salesmen and women, there's equality for you, who wouldn't know honesty if it bit them on their corporate fat cat butts. Rant over. So after getting home and setting up and uploading everything, etc., I realized that I was dealing with Windows 8.1. Yes, the devil itself, Windows 8.1. And after nearly getting used to Windows 7 and being fully used to the previous versions of Windows, they've gone and changed it all again. Now, Windows 8.1 has so many bells and whistles, and strongly advises you to do everything and thinks you should add everything, maybe even things you wouldn't normally want to add or do. It's quite concerning. Now, I'm still getting used to things, so I am bearing with it. And whilst I am resistant to change, I am a quick learner. So watch this space. Oh, yes, indeedy. So in other news, our brother, Sergeant Andrew Tamarisi, is still in a Mexican jail despite the pleas and petitions to President Obama. Please show your support by visiting freeourmarine.com, and please donate to www.andrewfreedomfund, that's spelled how it's said, andrewfreedomfund.com. We will tweet that out later. If you can make a donation, whatever that might be, even $5 will help towards our brother Andrew Tamarisi's legal fees. So make sure you go and check that out. Oh, yes, indeed. So joining me to break down the hotter topics and issues that matter to you and I is my good friend, broadcaster, and host of Not the Right Side, Not the Wrong Side, but indeed The Real Side. Welcome back to the show, the one and only Mr. Joe Messina. Hi, Joe. How you doing?
Thank God there's only one of me, huh, Xander? I mean, thank God there's only one of me.
Absolutely.
The world isn't ready for two of us.
No, I know. I said I don't think the world's ready for two Xander Gibbs, but can you just imagine that all these ideologies of parallel universes? I wonder what the Joe Messina and the Xander Gibb is actually like in the parallel universe.
You know, you threw me off a little bit because I tuned in just about the time you said that Best Buy was selling fat butts or something like that. I didn't quite catch it.
No. I was saying that they lie off their fat corporate butts because my sister and I last year we spent a lot of money on computers because the other businesses that we run, they require us to use computers. And the guy was like, "Oh, if you buy all of this now, we'll give you 10% off everything you buy next time you come in." But that only lasts for 3 months. But they omit to tell you that, and because they omit to tell you that, when you go in, you're expecting to get, if you're spending like $300 or $400 on a computer, basically you're expecting to get $30 or $40 off, and you actually get nothing off. And I actually found, funnily enough, that the guy who served me, the manager of the computer department, is now the manager of the store, and was saying, "Oh, don't worry, Xander, I remember you. We'll be helping you out next time and stuff." And I thought, as I was leaving, I thought, well, if you can help me out, why couldn't you actually do that today? And why would I come back again?
That's so right. Yeah. That's like, I'll still love you in the morning, right? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't work out that way. Yeah.
So I won't be going there again. But I did complain. I actually encourage everybody, because in this economy, if you're spending your money, there is buyer's choice, and I think that if you don't get the level of service that's been advertised or provided, then you should contact the company, because you deserve some of your money back. In most cases, if you have a genuine complaint and you want to address that with a company, then you should do it. I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen me, but I go on social media. I go on Twitter and Facebook, and I name and shame the companies, and I say what they've done. And 9 times out of 10, I get money back, because they don't want the bad feeling and the hassle. But it is always a case of the squeaky wheel gets the oil. But I think that people should all start sending up to companies, because maybe they will be less likely to mess with everybody else in the future.
Xander, why do you think most people are afraid, to go knock on the manager's door and say, "Hey, look, I think you did something wrong here, and I want you to fix it. I want you to explain it to me"? A lot of people don't do that. They think they're making trouble or something.
Well, I think it's kind of like, I don't know, certainly when I lived in the UK, people kind of felt that it wasn't the done thing to complain. But why not? If you say, "Xander, fix my car," and I give you a car back and it's not fixed and you've paid me $500, why should I walk away with that $500 when I haven't performed the service that I have said that I would perform for you? Because it's technically theft, surely.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's interesting, though, how we've become a society, and there's a few of us that will speak up. I do it. I'm the guy that sends his food back if it isn't quite right, but I'm never nasty about it, especially the first time. People make mistakes. I get it. The same thing with your car and other things that go on, but go back and say, "Hey, I paid you for this, and it's really not where it's supposed to be. Can you take another look at it?" And most people won't do it. I don't know whether it's the way society looks at things now or what. Are we accepting mediocrity?
I think maybe we are, but I think that there's another element to it. I think that a lot of people are too busy to actually follow things through. But I think some people are too scared. I mean, I've never been someone to kind of like back down from a fight. So people even call me, like my sister calls me and she's like, "Zan, will you call this company for me because they've done this and they've done that?" So people know that I'm the go-to guy to get them the money back, and that's absolutely fine. I'm quite happy to do that. But I think that in this country, in these United States, we, as the consumer, we don't get as many rights. Like, for instance, if I lived in England, if I bought something from a store in England that was like, say, for instance, Walmart or Target, if it didn't work properly or broke down within the first year, I would take it back to that store. Here, after 3 months, you got to go to the manufacturer. And even if you take it right back to the store, like within a couple of days, sometimes some stores won't even.
They try to pull that, yeah.
Exactly, but I think that the government is a lot to blame with that, because they're not tight enough legislation-wise on protecting consumers, and because that actually occurs, why should the companies care if they can get away with blue murder by selling you faulty goods? Why should they change it? And that's where I think that we all come in, because we all have to become citizen journalists. We all have to become consumer advocates and actually voice these concerns to the people that we purchase things from. You have to vote with your feet, and if you're not getting what you're paying for from one company, it's a buyer's market. So get your AWS off to somewhere else and be paying someone that's going to do it properly.
Well, I got to give you a lot of credit, because I read it. Yeah, did you do all that in one breath? Because that was amazing. when I see stuff on Twitter to these customer service companies, I don't care whether it's Sears or an airline or what have you, I would have never have thought of some of the stuff I see online where I see people complaining via Twitter to these companies, and they respond. And I'm surprised that they even respond.
They do. Oh, I've had them. Yeah. They've even said to me, it really makes me. I'm not going to mention the phone company because they've sorted this out now. But with my cell phone company, I'm with a certain company, and I pay like $100 a month, and I get like unlimited data. But the data was only working at home because I have Wi-Fi. So when I go out, I had no roaming, no data roaming. And so this was going on for about 3 or 4 months, and they wouldn't give me the money. So I just went on every hour on the hour and actually said stuff to this company saying, don't use this company, don't sign up to them because they do not give you what they say they will give you, and they want to shut you up. So, they gave me $80 and sorted the problem out, but it's the squeaky wheel gets the oil again, It's the way of the world, really.
Yeah, it's too bad. Go ahead. Well, I was just going to say, a lot of times it used to be that you could go into a store and they really didn't want you upset with them because they had the mindset to know that you were going to keep coming back and spending more money, and giving you a lousy $80 back simply meant that was the best advertising dollars they were going to spend because you're going to tell your friends how great they treated you.
Exactly. Yeah, I think it's got bigger than that, though, because there's more consumer choice now. Like, for instance, even just using the example of a laptop, you can go anywhere along the high street. There are umpteen stores that you could go to buy a laptop. And I recommend stuff to people. I say, I bought this from here, and it was fabulous, and this is how much, they're selling it for. So that kind of encourages people to go and do stuff. But I'm just as vehemently proactive with regards to negative experiences, because I think people need to know. Because if you said, "Hey, Xander, I'm going to buy a new laptop," and you went and got it from Best Buy, and they treated you like it, and then you said, "Well, you could have told me," I said, "Oh, well, actually, they treated me badly." You would be like, "Well, why didn't you tell me this, Xander? Because then I wouldn't have gone there." It's imperative that we share good and bad experiences with regards to consumerism, because I think that if we don't, we're kind of, we're doing people a disservice too. It's imperative that we get to the stores and the services that give you the best quality, because let's face it, that's what America is all about. It's about getting the best for your money. Surely, that's part of the American way. It's not about the consumer being ripped off and getting substandard service and not getting what they've been promised. If we want that, we can we can go elsewhere, as it were. No,
you're right, and it's good that you're telling people. I'm a miser. I don't buy anything. Okay, if I can't get it for free, I'm not interested. So I don't do that.
Are you Jewish, Joe?
Well, glad you said it.
Well, I'm not asking because I'm anti-Semitic. I'm asking because
I'm the worst.
I'm Jewish.
I'm the worst of both worlds. I'm right. I could be Jewish and Italian. I grew up with a lot of Jews, but I grew up with a lot of Italians too. So I know how to make a deal. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Me too. I'm a Jew for Jesus, so I've got a foot in several camps. But if I can get it for free or cheaper, I am the best negotiator I know. If you ever want to buy anything, do a three-way call and I'll get money off for you. My sister, when we're in store, she's like, "Do you know who he is? Do you know who this guy is?" And I'm like, don't say anything. But I'm a good negotiator. But let's talk about. We never get to talk about you and I when we're on together. We never get to talk much about faith and religion. And I know you have some ideologies, but I wondered what you thought about the Arizona man that was arrested even recently for urinating on and burning a Bible. Now, is it blasphemy or a First Amendment right? So this guy is 22 years old, calling himself Dark Lord. Well, I can imagine him being baptized. Was arrested for allegedly burning a Bible and urinating on it outside a Christian homeless shelter in northern Arizona on Friday. Eric Mineralt was booked into the Yavapai County Detention Center late on Thursday on suspicion of one count of unlawful symbol burning stemming from the incident at the Gospel Rescue Mission. Prescott Police spokesman Lieutenant Ken Morley said in a written statement, officers found him standing on the steps with a burned and wet Bible on the ground near him, and he quickly admitted to the act. Now, what do you make of this, Joe? You know, there is a lot of crossover with rights, et cetera, in these United States. But we've had so much trouble over the last few years. You know, people burning Qurans as offended Muslims, and we'll get onto that subject a little bit later on. But is this guy, you know, exercising his First Amendment rights, or is he blaspheming our religion?
Well, first let me say, you know, and I'm not being tongue-in-cheek about this, thank God there's nothing in our Bible about beheading people when they do something against our scripture, you know what I'm saying? Because
exactly.
it seems to be quite a fashionable thing to do lately is to get on the Christians. And but look, here's what I have a hard time. I'm in the same boat you are, okay? I don't. The book itself, what's printed in the book, the ink, the paper, the book itself, that's not what's sacred to you and I. What's sacred to you and I is the Word of God, and the book just gives us the ability to read it. I can read it off my phone or the paper or what have you. So, yes, it's offensive to me as a Christian. But in the same token, I got to look at this and say, this is a First Amendment right that we have in this country. As much as I hate it and I think it's wrong, it's still a First Amendment right. He has a right to speak out or act out to a degree. I mean, if he set the building on fire, that's wrong. But he set one book on fire. I mean, they probably could have arrested him for being, lewd in public or something, or, you know, public urination, I'm sure, and something like that. But frankly, again, as you said, as much as I don't like it, he's got a right to do it, just like he has a right to urinate on and light the American flag on fire and the Quran. But the difference with the Quran is funny how uptight we are. When it's not a Christian system, you get all uptight and we don't want to offend the others. But the Christians, they're okay because, again, there's nothing in their book about killing, maiming, or beheading anybody, so that's all right. That's a good thing.
Yeah, I think the concern is for me. You know, I remember a few years ago. I can't remember if it was in the UK or here, but someone had been doing bad stuff in churches and outside churches and stuff, and they got him more on the trespass and things like that than anything else. But you know, so I kind of think that some things are. You know, there is a great big crossover with this with regards to the First Amendment, et cetera, et cetera. But how are we supposed to feel as Christians about that? Because like you said, and you know, I'm not going on a Muslim bashing expedition or anything like that, but if if a white person in this country stood outside a mosque and urinated on the Quran and then set fire to it, there would be war.
And Xander, you're right. We're not bashing a religion, but let's just be flat out honest about it. And you know, if we make fun of Muhammad in a Sunday cartoon or in a caricature type of thing in any one of the newspapers, there's a group of them. Not all. I'm not going to paint with that broad of a brush, but there's a group of them that get all upset. They call for somebody to be fired and all this other stuff. But yet, you know, you guys have an art exhibit there in New York where Jesus was put in a bottle upside down on a crucifix in a bottle of urine, and that was called art.
Well,
and we make all kinds of fun of Jesus on. Oh yeah, it was disgusting. I did it on my show, and I actually lined up a whole bunch of stuff like that. So we had that one. We had a new age Jesus on the cross. It was really freaky looking. You know, all of those things we're supposed to accept as a freedom of speech, and I think Christians as a whole do a pretty darn good job at saying, you know, okay, they've got the freedom to do that. I don't like it, but it's their right to do it. We don't want to go kill anybody or persecute anybody or put anybody in jail over it. I think when you do things around the Jewish faith, I think that's a little more sensitive too, because let's just be frank about it. They have been persecuted worldwide since I've been conscious, and probably before that. So I think we tend to be a little more, hey, let's not do that. They've been through enough. I mean, kind of thing. But yeah, it's a freedom of speech thing, and it drives me out of my mind.
Yeah, I just kind of I just get a little concerned sometimes about these crossovers, because a lot of rights a lot of rights affect other rights, and so there are the crossovers there. But also with regards to kind of sensibility, I mean, I think that in fairness, whatever your religion is, whatever your religiosity is, even whatever your political beliefs are, we all need to have a little element of sensitivity about those things, surely, because I think that when we don't, that's when it all kind of goes to pot, really, for me.
Well, I think, and I think it's funny. These are minor things, I mean, I recently wrote a piece that there's no war on religion, but there is a war on Christianity in this country. And I don't want to take away from, we got some soft-spine Christians in this country where the kid can't read the Bible in school, and oh my God, we're being persecuted. But we have kids dying in the Middle East. They're being beheaded and killed and everything else in the Middle East because they're Christians, simply because they're Christians. So we don't. Right. Yeah, we can complain a little bit, but my God, it's not the end of the world, right? I mean, really. But
exactly.
When you look at everything going down, I mean, one of the pieces I did about this freedom from religion, I call them the freedom from religion freaks, but they're really the Freedom from Religion Foundation is what they call themselves. And they are running around. They're running around suing schools. They're suing restaurants. They're suing. One restaurant owner said, "Hey, bring in your Sunday church bulletin. I'll give you 10% off." Well, that's discrimination according to them. So they're going to sue that restaurant.
But how though? Did they specify which kind of church? Did they say only if you go to a Lutheran place or a Methodist or? I'm sure mosques have a bulletin.
Well, I don't. You know what? I haven't been to a temple in 20 years. But I'm sure everybody has some kind of, like you say, a bulletin, a information sheet, something they can bring in. But the bottom line with it is this: their attitude was it was church related. End of discussion. They weren't interested in anything else. Okay, that's discrimination, because if an atheist walks in the door, I said, listen, if an atheist is smart and he wants a 10% discount, he won't get struck by lightning to go up to the local church and say, hey, can I have one of your bulletins? I want to see what you got going on. And then go down to the restaurant. Come on, be creative here.
I think it's totally acceptable that if you don't want anything to do with religion, that is your choice. But for those of us that do, I don't kind of like the word religion, because for me,
I don't either.
What I have is faith, and I have a relationship with God. But if you don't want that, some of my best friends are atheists, and we'll have theological debates about, whether I can prove that God existed and whether Jesus was really on the planet and all of these things. And of course, a lot of these things, most of these things are not really provable, but that's where faith comes in. But right. I don't say, well, I don't want to be your friend anymore because you're not a Christian, or because you happen to be a Muslim, or because you're a Jew but you're not a Jew for Jesus. Because we all have all of these differences, and I think the imperative is to kind of to keep a level head about it, really, because otherwise it just becomes really ridiculous.
Well, look,
taking friends out of school.
You and I know. Yeah, but you and I know, because you've been a part of this persecution yourself. I've been a part of this persecution at times. Yeah, and you and I both know you don't win anybody by putting your finger in their face and telling them they're going to hell because they don't know Jesus. Okay, that I don't even find that in my scripture that says go do that, right? So you win people over by your life. You win people over by the things that you're doing in your community, and that kind of stuff. And people will eventually come up and say, "Why are you doing that? Why are you feeding so and so? Why are you helping out so and so?" And then you tell them it's all about the love of God. That's how you win people to God. You don't win them by sticking your finger in their face. Hey, dude, it's going to get pretty hot for you if you don't come over, It doesn't work that way.
Exactly. Yeah, I think, and even just looking at the Bible, what the Bible does actually say about it. Jesus said you will know them by the fruits. You will know them by how they live their life and what they do. And surely that has to be the biggest form of testimony ever. The example that you set for other people and the way you treat others. Surely that has to be the biggest witness, really.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it's funny because we were talking with a group of my Christian business buddies, and I asked the question: are you guys, Monday morning atheists? Right? It's real easy to be a Christian or a Jew when you're in temple, right? Or even a Muslim when you go to mosque. It's real easy to be a Christian on Sunday morning because everybody's on the same page to a degree, and nobody's really tell you what they got going on during the week. But when you're sitting in a meeting with a bunch of devout atheists or heathens, and you're sitting there and you're the only Christian in the room, can you hold yourself without sticking your finger in anybody's face? Don't get me wrong, but do you maintain your principles? And I don't think Christian guys think about that, especially Christian businessmen. They don't think the two are interchangeable. They think you have to check it at the door when you go to work and you pick it back up on the way out. And I don't think that's true at all. I think when you look at the principles of the love of God, you can use those in business, in school, and at home. And I think we're afraid to.
I think that I don't know. I think some people are really afraid to. People are kind of surprised about my position in life, and then they're surprised that I can get on stage and be funny and do comedy, and then that I'm a Christian, that I go to church, because obviously you're not allowed to be funny, because Jesus doesn't allow anybody to be funny or have a sense of humor, which is ridiculous. I mean, it even says in the Bible, and God laughed. So God has a sense of humor.
Laughter is good. The Bible says that laughter is good for the soul. I mean, give me a break. And if you don't think that God has a sense of humor, look in the mirror every morning, people.
Yeah.
There's a heck of a joke going on there, isn't there?
Yeah.
Come on.
God has to have a sense of humor. He made me, for heaven's sake. I mean,
that to me, that look in the mirror and go like, God, really?
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, I think that just as that there are a lot of Christians that are over fundamental about it.
Yeah.
I mean, I have members of my family who are really so judgy, and they've seen my act and they've said, you shouldn't say this and you shouldn't do that. But that's between me and God, I will do what I do, and if I don't feel bad about that when I pray at the end of the day, surely anything over and above that is between me and my Maker, not between me and Aunt Gladys or cousin Jeffrey, who just happened to hear me drop the F-bomb once or twice. I mean, we don't really swear on this show. The guests, I can't control the guests. I can only control me. But I pitch my life and my work at a certain echelon, but I cannot force others to do the same, and nor do I want to, because it's not real, then, is it? Let's face it. If I'm having to force you to do something, then it's not real.
Well, bingo. I mean, for those of you guys that are married, when your spouse complains that they don't have flowers, you never bring me flowers, you don't do this anymore, you don't do it anymore, and then you start doing it just because, okay, I got to shut them up. So here you go. Yeah. That doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. No. We all know it doesn't mean anything. It's really doing it from the heart, and that's really what means it. And again, it's like you say, the relatives are the worst. I mean, they're really the worst. But I grew up in an old-fashioned.
Go on, sorry.
I was going to say, no, I grew up in that old-fashioned Roman Italian Catholic family, and you know what it's like in New England on the East Coast. My God, you don't get much more holier than that, if you would. And that was a tough thing to break when as some say, you become a mainstream Christian, which is different than Catholicism. Just be honest about it.
Exactly.
And I love my don't get me wrong, I love my Catholic roots. I love what they taught me, what they taught me about faith, what they taught me about God, how to be disciplined. Those are some of the best lessons I could ever get. But as you said, and it may not be the same today, so I'm going to say I don't go to a Catholic church except when a friend will ask me to go for an event or something. But the relationship was taught to me after I got out of the Catholic Church. The real, as you said earlier, not religion, it's relationship. Now, I know a lot of my Catholic friends do have relationships, but they say the same thing. It's not a mainstream teaching about the relationship. It's more about obedience.
Exactly. And I think, I don't know, it's kind of a funny thing. I mean, my half of my family is very mixed. Half of my family is Jewish. My father was a Roman Catholic. So for me to, for a lot of my life choices and the way that I live my life has been astounding to my mother. But I think that as you're a parent, you have kids. You cannot live your kids' lives for them. They're going to choose what they like religion, work, whatever else. They might even not have the same politics as you. And I'm sure that you would like them to, but you can't control your kids after they're 18. Unless they still live with you, of course.
No,
but
they can't
we
control
can't
them that
control
much before
other
they're
people.
18.
No, definitely not. No, when I see my nieces and nephews growing up, they're like threatening to call DCF, and you can't make me do this. It's unconstitutional. I'm like, my gosh, that was mild when I was growing up compared to these kids of nowadays. Really, I mean, I feel like I'm turning into my grandmother. My grandmother used to say, "These kids today, they're terrible," and I used to think, God, don't ever let me sound like that. But I'm turning into that kind of, that kind of genre.
My oldest son likes to tell the story about and they can't pick me up now because they're gone. He was going to pick up the phone and call DCF, and I said, son, put the phone down. Call the hospital first and tell them to come get you, and then you can call DCF and tell them to pick you up at the hospital because I'm gonna kick the crap out of you before you get out of here. And he put the phone down and he ran into his bedroom crying, and we didn't have that problem again. But we're so afraid as parents. I mean, they've got us in that corner of fear where you can't raise your children, but you are responsible for the way they turn out. I mean, think about that.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. When I was researching for the show today, last week, I saw something online where a mother had actually been arrested because her child had left all his dirty clothes in the room. So the next day he got up for school. There was no clean clothes, so we had to take dirty clothes out of the hamper, and they didn't smell very nice. So the teacher, because the kid smells, the kid is abused. So the mother is arrested. The kid is taken into care for 48 hours until they sort out. Now, my philosophy has always been if you think a kid is at risk, then without fail, you have to say something about it, or you're kind of part of the problem. But having said that, I would never think, oh, this kid is abused because they smell. I mean, gosh, half the adults I come into contact with must be abused then because they smell too. So
have you smelled kids in high school? I mean, unless you're up against a very young lady who's got all the perfume in the world on, most of the time these boys, if they've got that cologne that they put on for the girls, but the rest of you can smell through that, and it smells like they've run a race, half of them during the day, during a hot summer day. It's disgusting. But it's teenage smell, I guess, is what it is. And you're right. That's just, there was a dad that was arrested in North Carolina. I did the story like 2 months ago for forcing his son to go to church. And apparently, the one Sunday in particular, he got out of hand, and the police were summoned in. And then a couple of days later, he gets a visit from DCF, and then they ended up arresting the guy. And it's crazy. So it's not just, and again, I'm picking on the church thing because we're Christians, but they're making it impossible for us to instill any kind of values in our children, whether it's cleaning their room, doing their homework, any of that stuff is taboo for you to punish them because they call it punitive, right? Wow. You keep your kid out of sports because he won't keep his grades up. That's punitive. I mean, are you serious? No, it's not. It's called an incentive program. It's like that paycheck you get every week. You show up for work, you get the paycheck. It's a wonderful deal.
But did it do us any harm, Joe? I know you're a little bit older than me, but did it do us any harm? Did it do us any harm to have these kind of values instilled in us in order to actually teach us values and make us better people? I know it didn't me. I mean, I rebelled for so long about stuff, but I think it's a rite of passage. It's like part of growing up. But I think to be arresting people for parenting is just damn ridiculous. But I tell you, the other side of the coin for me, where it makes me really furious, is where there are kids that are being abused and they end up dead and nobody said anything, but they're pulling kids out of school because they smell. I mean, get some balance.
Yeah, you're right on with the balance. But listen to this. If you think about something, they use the word beating. The left uses the word you're not going to beat your kids, all right? For some of us who have a brain that functions, I know the difference between beating my kids and administering discipline. Big difference, okay?
Right.
I grew up in a staunch Italian family. You didn't talk back to elders. That was not acceptable. Now, I got the belt. Yes, you want to go arrest my uncle? I'll give you my dad. I'll give you their addresses. I got the belt a few times during my life. I didn't get it every day. I didn't even get it once a week. But what I knew when that belt came out of the belt loops, I had pushed it to the nth degree, and it was not a happy place to be. And that stuff gives me, and even the nuns. I went to a Catholic school. You know what the nuns were good with? with? Remember those pointers that had a little rubber thing on the end that they used on the chalkboard? I know some of your audience may not know what a chalkboard is today, but they take that thing, they'd come up behind you, and if you were screwing around, right across the back with it. You know what? I don't need psychiatric care today. I don't need to be on a couch 12 hours a week. Those were good things for me at the time. I wasn't beat. Do you know what I'm saying? I wasn't beat. So I learned respect for authority. I learned where the boundaries were. There was pain when you stepped over the boundaries, but I think that made me a better person today. Now we've got kids in all kinds of psychological scenarios, and everybody's got ADD if they're not behaving themselves. You know, we got kids going for therapy, kids shooting up schools, but the way we grew up was wrong, apparently.
Absolutely. But let me ask you this, Joe, and then I'll ask you, and then I'll tell you my answer to the question. But how many times have you been hauled before the courts? How many times have you been in trouble with the police? All of these things. How many times have you been arrested for beating up your wife? Do you know what I mean? These things have made us better people, because I can say zero. Actually, pre-16, pretty often, not for beating up my wife, obviously, because I wasn't married before I was 16, but certainly before I was 16, I was, scratching cars and breaking into telephone boxes for the coins and all of those things that kids do because they're bored.
Well,
but past 16 or past 18, as an adult, I've never been arrested in my life, knock wood, But I think that's more to do with having a healthy respect for the law and being able to kind of, live a life where I don't, if a mother steals food for her kids, yeah, it's wrong, but I totally understand it. But if you steal a car because someone's got a better car than you, to me that's totally wrong,
It's
valid.
I'm with you. I mean, I have not been arrested, but I will say I have a very heavy foot, and so when I see the lights in my rearview mirror, because I know what these guys are up against these days, because I read the paper, I pull over, I roll down all the windows, and I put my hand up on the steering wheel. You know why? Because that puts the officer at ease, knowing I'm not going to cause him any trouble. I'm opening up my world to him, and it's a whole different conversation at that point in time. Instead of me cracking my window like some of these young punks do, 2 inches ago. Yeah, what do you want? What was I doing? You're done. At that point, you're done, right? I mean, can you imagine doing that to a New York cop?
You would be, I have police officers in my family. This week there's been a big discussion on Facebook. One of them was actually started by a member of my family. Now, we all know what's gone on in Ferguson and places like that, and we can all admit that there are some police officers who work outside the boundaries of what is right and what is acceptable, and they should be drummed out of the force. But the majority of police officers do a good job under very difficult circumstances, and I'm PISS that every police officer in this country is being tarred with the same brush because of what's gone on in Ferguson and the odd incidences of police officers brutalizing perpetrators. But for me, I really don't know if you agree with this, but if I couldn't do that job, because to be honest, if you have a split second to decide whether you have to shoot someone to keep yourself and the community safe, to make sure you're going home for work at night because some a-hole has decided to pull a gun on you. If you've got to make that split-second decision, I don't envy that, Joe. I really do not envy that.
We expect these guys. Listen, this is the hypocritical thing about some of the people in this country is that we don't want to take one iota of backlash from somebody's mouth. You look at Facebook and look how often people are attacked for something they say. And the attacks aren't warranted in a lot of cases because all I'm trying to have or somebody else is trying to have is open discussion. But now we have these guys on the street, okay? Now you get these little, and I'm not saying this is what happened to Ferguson because I refuse to really say anything about it until I see the facts too. But the bottom line is,
my gosh, you've been reading my diary, Joe, haven't you? Sorry, I interrupted you. You've been really have been reading my diary because that's been my perspective too.
look, you got to use a little common sense. See, you have police officers in the family. I had police officers in the family, but I had crooks in the family too. I had mafia guys in the family, and you know how they think, and you know how they operate, and you got a punk in the street. You've got a cop that's chartered with protecting all those people on that street. You've got a punk that's doing stuff wrong. He's got a prior record. I mean, come on, give me a break. These guys are going to be a little on edge. They are trained to control themselves, but at some point in time, right? You got somebody running at you. You got somebody driving a car at you. You want to go see what cops put up with. Go look at dashboard cameras from police cars. You see some of the crap that these cops have to put up with. Yeah, I give them great credit. I don't know if I could do that job.
Me either.
You know,
I mean, I just wish for every bad incident they showed of somebody, like a cop punching somebody out to keep them in line, to keep them from getting up and attacking other people or whatever. I wish they would be forced to show when a cop has run into a building to save someone that would otherwise have been dead, or pulls a kid out of a car wreck, or all of these things. Because I preceded what I said about the police by saying, there are some out there that do not deserve the badge. Of course. But I can't put a percentage on that. I was talking to my brother-in-law today, who is a cop, and he was saying that he reckons it's 0.1 of a percentage. Because if you imagine, I don't know how many cops there are in this country, but if you imagine in every walk of life, in every job, there are people that are bad at it and abuse it. Look at traffic wardens and stuff like that. Some of them are little Hitlers, but I'm sure that some of them are really nice. I mean, last year I was driving my car in the city, and I changed lanes, and I indicated I'm a good driver, and I tried to be a really good driver. So I got pulled over, and I wound down the window, opened the door, and the officer started talking to me. I was polite. I called him sir. I explained my point of view, and he was nice as pie and let me on my way. Basically, because I'd not done anything wrong. But if you get rackety with them right away and are rude to them, why should they bother to listen to what you have to say? To me, it's like you catch my mom and my grandma always come up with this phrase when we were growing up, and they used to say, Zan, you catch more flies with honey than you do vinegar. So if you're nice with someone from the off, why are they going to be crappy with you? I mean, maybe they've had a bad day, but it's harder to be rude to someone that's being nice to you. Let's face it.
But you know what? It's true with everything that you do. Think about something. When you go into the bakery, you go into the grocery store, and you go grab the manager, and you say to the manager, I drove 2 hours to get here because you had this product that you showed in the newspaper. I get here, you have none left. You guys are a bunch of thieves. All you did was... All right, that's one way to approach it. The other way to approach it, you go to the manager and go, look, I drove 2 hours to come up here, and you guys are all, are you going to have this thing again, or are you going to, you have any hiding in the back room? I mean, what can I do to get this product?
Yeah.
Do you know that about 9.5 out of 10 times, that manager's going to look at you and wink and go, hold on, I think we got another case in the back. Let's see if I can break one out for you. A big difference, but we've come to that point, and what bothers me, Zen, is when I look online, look at all the negative comments that people make pretty much about anything that goes on. Facebook is kind of like brings out the nasties in everybody. And it's almost like we're owed. You have to go out of your way. When a police officer pulls you over, again, you don't start with, give me the code of the law that I broke before I go ahead and rip my wallet out of my back pocket for you. I want to, why bother? Yeah, I just don't see. And by the way, to your comment, there's over as of 2010, there was over 650,000 sworn police officers across this country. Now, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know about you, but if you've got 1,000 police officers that are dirty, that's not a bad number. I don't believe that most law enforcement people go into the business to see how much damage they can do in a community because they hate people. They go in there because they love people.
Right. Absolutely. And I think that this is the problem. These police officers that do overuse their power, how do you weed them out? Do you know what I mean? You only found out that they're bad cops when they've done something. You don't know at
Well,
the beginning when they're doing their training that they're going to be bad cops, do you? I mean, or they wouldn't put them out on the street. But I do feel kind of quite, we were commenting on this thing. There was this video of this guy that was off his head on meth, and he wouldn't, if a cop says to you, sit down on the ground and put your hands on your head, that is what you do because they have a gun. And they've given you, legally, you have to do what the cop tells you to do. That's the law, isn't it? If the cop says, stand on one leg and recite the national anthem backwards, then that's what you do. I'm being silly, obviously, but that's what you do. And that's what I've been raised to do. And then, because my philosophy is, if you don't like what the cop is saying or what the cop is doing, you let them do what they're going to do, and then you deal with it after. Now, some of these people, I have to preface that, some of these people that have been shot and killed have been in that situation because they've either been doing wrong, or about to do something wrong, or whatever. Because let's face it, how many people do you hear of that have been shot by a cop that were actually just walking along, minding their own business? Admittedly, it happens sometimes because of stray bullets or... Do you know what I mean? That's what. Hey, I'm not trying to be controversial here. I'm just saying that it's important that we make sure that we diversify between cops that make a mistake and bad cops, because not every cop is a bad cop. And there's the first ones we call when we're in trouble.
Yeah, but Xander, if you again, logical thinking, if you could put the numbers together, how many people get pulled over in one day in the United States, how many people that are questioned by the cops in the United States, and then how many people are just blatantly shot by the cops every day in the United States. I mean, the numbers are probably not even measurable when it comes to how many people get into a physical altercation and die over a traffic stop kind of thing. So we blow this stuff up because, you know what, it makes good news. It puts money in Sharpton and Jesse's pockets. Is there a problem? Is there racism and prejudice among cops, just like there's racism and prejudice among firefighters, among talk show hosts, among teachers? It's there, and we've done. I think this country over the last 50 years, 60 years, 70 years has done a great job in moving past prejudices and totally distasteful. Look, I grew up in a time when Italians weren't, really regarded as anything but ditch diggers. So, you can imagine when my mother tried to move me out to the suburbs, and you can appreciate this, from the inner city of Boston out to the suburbs, I go to these all white Anglo-Saxon schools, and I'm like the black guy in the room all of a sudden. I had never been treated like that. I didn't understand that at all. That was a whole new feeling for me.
Yeah, I think it's kind of because everybody says that they're not prejudiced up until 2.5 years ago. I'll hold my head up. I talk about this all the time. I was totally prejudiced towards Republicans, and I wouldn't even be in the same room as a Republican. But obviously all that changed. We refer to that on this show as the Dr. Gina effect. But I kind of make light of it. But we all have prejudices, and I would never have considered myself prejudiced, but I was. I hated Republicans, and I wasn't prepared to sit down and discuss the issues, et cetera, with them. But, the funny thing is that as you start to evolve, as areas of your life start to evolve, all of it evolves because all of the scabs get ripped off, and you really have to kind of address all of your issues. And I think thankfully I've never been racist or discriminate in that way, but I certainly know people that are. I've even heard people say, in business circles, I won't employ anybody that's not white skinned, and I'm like, don't sit and say this in front of me because I want to rip your face off for saying it. And I'm not violent, but I cannot sit in company and have these kind of things said because it kind of grates. It's like putting a cheese grater against my morals,
Xander, I'm sitting in a Christian men's group, okay, and we're talking about something. I don't remember whether it was Megyn Kelly said something about Jesus being white or whatever, or Santa being white, and somebody made the comment that everybody knows Jesus is white. And so I looked, and being in the position that you and I are in, it's hard to keep your mouth shut, right? So I looked over at the guy and I said,
absolutely.
That is one of the most ignorant statements I've ever heard in my life. And he looked at me horrified. And I said, you're going off all these stupid pictures that you see in white churches, right, with the blonde hair, the blue eyes, and that. I said, show me a Jew that has long blonde hair and blue eyes and milky white skin. Let's start off there.
Exactly.
I go into a black church, and he's got black skin, dark eyes, and long hair. So give me a break on that one, too. The guy was a Jew. Hello, anybody home? He was a Jew back in Israel.
Exactly.
He probably had sandy brown skin, looked like he'd been beaten up a little bit from walking through the sand and all that other stuff. He probably wasn't a very tall man, and I'm sure he probably had short. They kept the hair short for a reason, short curly hair, or I can't even say curly, but let's just be honest about it. If we stop playing these games, then we don't have to fight those issues. And
exactly.
he was horrified.
But they don't like it when you challenge them on these things, do they? I've been in groups when they've used the N-word, and I've had to say something about it. I've had to say, please don't use that terminology in front of me. And then, of course, you're seen as kind of like an aggravator. But I'd rather be seen as an aggravator and walk out with my morality intact than sit there and have my ears poisoned by things like this. But it is imperative to speak out, which is part of the reason I have a radio show, and I'm sure it's the same for you, because I'm not one of these people who gets on in life by agreeing with everybody. If I agree with you, I'll agree with you. But if I don't, I have to tell you that I don't agree with you. And it's probably cost me more contracts, more gigs, and all of these things. But that's fine. But you get what you get. That's kind of what I'm saying.
I lost the radio station, and you can appreciate this. I lost the radio station because when what's his name, Phil, the duck guy, he came out. When he made his comments, right? And what I hated more than anything was every radio station, not every, like Huffington Post and all that, they were coming out with all those comments that the Bible says nothing about sex, absolutely nothing about homosexuality, heterosexual, families, mother, father, doesn't say anything about any of that. And I'm thinking to myself, why are we letting the Huffington Post dictate to us what the Bible says or doesn't say? So when I got on the radio that day, I said, look, I'm not talking about, homosexuals or lesbians or gay. That's not what I'm dealing with here. But I'm just tired of people who don't even crack a Bible telling me and others what's in it. So I went through a couple of scriptures, and I said, again, I'm not saying this to be hateful or mean-spirited. I just want you guys to understand that the Bible talks about every aspect of life. So for somebody to tell you that this doesn't exist in there or there isn't an explanation for something in there is wrong. It's not fair. It's not fair to me. It's not fair to anybody. So anyway, the long and the short of it is the guy calls me afterward and says, I don't have room for you on my station starting next month.
Why?
Okay.
Did he give you a reason?
And I said to him, what did I say? And he said, well, you read out of that 2,000-year-old hateful book. He said, and my son...
Meaning the Bible.
The hateful book, right? He said, my son realized that he was gay at 8 years old, and what you're doing is disparaging me, a father who raised, a young man from 8, a gay young man at 8. And I said, I didn't say anything about the gay, the lesbian. I didn't say anything about any of that. You lost the whole point. The whole focus was, I'm tired of heathens dictating to me and others what's in the Bible and what's not in the Bible. Now you read it and you decide for yourself, but don't tell me these things aren't in there. It's not fair. And think about that. Think about that with that radio station owner. I didn't say anything nasty about his son or anything along those lines. Nothing. He missed the whole point.
I think that we can all be, I'm openly gay. The listeners know that I'm gay. But I think that some people who are gay or supportive of gay people can be over protective. And I think that sometimes that's just as bad, really. Because you might have one interpretation of what the Bible says, and I might have another. But this is the thing at the end of the day, Joe. We don't have to agree on everything to coexist, do we?
Agree, of course. you know I'm on a school board in California, and in
Right.
California there's a law that was passed last year called the Fair Act law, which almost forces you to highlight the accomplishments of the gay and lesbian community and leaders in the gay and lesbian community, and also disparages not speaking ill of anybody in the gay or lesbian community. So what I was saying is, even you
Seriously?
are saying, wait a minute. Okay, so you're telling me gay and lesbian people never do anything wrong. Is that what you're telling me? That in history, nobody, and they don't come out first and say, hey, I'm gay, I'm going to wipe out the school. I mean, nobody does that. I'm in the mafia, I'm going to wipe out the school. I said, do you hear what you're saying and what you're pushing on us? So that I want all disparagement against Italians because they might be associated with the mafia. I want that out of all the history books, too. I want fair and equal play here. But here's the deal that bothered me the most. Yours truly has been one of the people that keeps coming out and saying, I know that these kids have I don't want to say special needs, but they have special issues that come up with them in a school environment. I get it. I get
right.
We need to help them out, and we do that. We go out of our way to do that, and what we do is we meet with the LGBTQ moms and the kids to find out, how do you want us to handle these kind of situations? You tell us what you're comfortable with. We don't want the state dictate. We want the people, the families dictating how they want this handled. I think it's fair. So I have the LGBTQ moms come in to one of my board meetings, and they want me gone, recalled, because a right-wing Christian conservative has no place being on a school board because he or she cannot do right by their kids. I'm thinking, are you out of your mind? First off, as a Christian, my Jesus tells me to love all children, love all people. If you think that that's a bad thing, I can't even go anywhere else with that. I'm done, right? I can't stop. We are supposed to take care of all kids. And as a school board member, my first charter as a Christian is to make sure all kids feel safe and wanted in that school and education environment. As an elected official, guess what? It's the same exact goal. So I don't get it.
I kind of hate this ideology we have in society with some people right now, whereas if you don't agree with exactly what I say, then you're a phobe, you're a hater, and that kind of bothers me because there's too much of it. And I'll give you an example. This week, over the past couple of weeks, I've been quite vocal towards the singer Annie Lennox about the things that she's been saying about Israel. Now, she's more peeved at the fact that her ex-husband is Israeli and she had difficulty with him, rather than what actually is going on between Israel, Palestine, and Hamas, when most intelligent people know that the issue is between Hamas and everybody else, not Israel and Palestine right now. But
right.
She's just been so pro-Hamas that she doesn't realize what she's saying. One of my friends texted me last week and said, since when did you start hating on Annie Lennox? And I'm like, wait, let's rewind this. I love Annie Lennox. I love her music. I disagree with her position, her perspective on what's going on between the conflict over in the Middle East right now. But I'm still a hater because I don't agree with Annie Lennox. I mean, I'll say publicly, I love Annie Lennox. She's a fabulous musician, but I disagree with her on some issues. So if that makes me a hater and a phobe, then I guess I'm a hater and a phobe. But I'm sick of it. We talked last time I was on your show. I'm homophobic because I don't agree with every single aspect about gay marriage. So I'm gay, but I'm a homophobe. You've been accused of being homophobic, but you have gay people on your show as guests. So where's the logic with all of this? I mean, I want to say bent logic, but it's ridiculous.
There's a young lesbian lady, and I even hate that we do it this way. This even bothers me too. There's a young lady, but there's a young lesbian girl in our church, okay? And she is a bright young girl. She picked it up. She's reading the local paper, and she came up to me one day and she goes, I've never felt anything but love from you. I don't know what these people are talking about. Is there something I can do to help you? Right? I mean, it's like, give her a hug, and I said to her, honey, no, I don't want you in this mess. Because they'll hate on you for supporting me. So you just keep praying for me, and it's cool. Everything is cool. And it's sad, though, that even, here's a young lady. She's trying to find herself. She's trying to understand all of this. And what she sees, in essence, from her own group is hating towards another group that she loves and she loves to be with. Talk about confusion.
Yeah, it is totally confusing because at the end of the day, whatever community it is, I mean, I'm sure there are people in the conservative community that don't agree on every single issue.
No,
but like
of course not.
one person in leadership and not the other. It's going to happen in all walks of life, but don't term us as being phobes and haters just because we don't agree on everything. I mean, I have to say, Joe, I bought into this for a long time. I used to think that if anybody was against gay marriage, then they were homophobic. And nothing could be further from the truth. You know, and when you break these things down more, you know, and I've talked to people a lot about this particular issue, that a lot of people take issue about gay marriage with regards to holy matrimony and not actually, you know, two people of the same sex going into a town hall and signing a piece of paper together. I know some people are not even happy with that, and that's fine. Then don't go do it, and don't be drawn into the discussions on it. But that doesn't make them haters. And I think that this is where society has to really change, because otherwise, what we end up is we end up not as a community, but we end up sectioned into different sections of the community, which is happening. And it's scary.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it is. It's, you know, this week I did a piece on, I don't know if you saw it, but in Utah, a federal judge knocked down an old Utah law, which it cracks. I won't say it wide opens the door, but it starts to crack the door open for polygamy. Okay, and there were 3 women that got married in Massachusetts. I did that story a couple of months ago. It was 2 of them got married to each other. The third one signed a contract making it, you know, a marriage between 3 people. And I said, when the whole argument about gay marriage was coming down, I said, look, we're arguing the wrong stuff here. We're just beating things to death. Here's the deal. If you just say you can't tell me who to love, if that's the argument, that all of a sudden opens up the door for all kinds of other stuff. If you just say two people should be allowed to enter into, you know, union, marriage, whatever you want to call it, that's one argument. But to say you can't tell me who to love, oh my God, they're coming out of the woodwork now saying, well, and if I was a gay person that was pro-gay marriage, I would be screaming, wait a minute, that's not what we fought for. I wish they would speak up.
Exactly.
We didn't fight for polygamy. We didn't fight. Now they're calling them, oh, God, what is it, intergenerational relationships. So you know what I'm talking about here, right? With a 12-year-old and a 40-year-old can hook up, and that's fine.
I can't remember what the group. There's a group in America. I can't say a NAMBLA. NAMBLA has been pushing for this intergenerational relationship thingy. And to me, whatever way you look at that, you cannot, if you're sane, see it as anything but pedophilia. And I hate.
No kidding.
I really hate the ideology that gay marriages kind of been opening the door for these kind of things. Because that's not what it was about, you know.
Right. I agree with you, but here's again, it's just like with the Muslims and the Christians and all that. It's like, all right, so here's something that's coming out. It would be great if somebody from the LGBTQ groups came out and said, look, that's not what we were fighting for. Don't let them pull that off on you. Same thing with the Christians. When a guy blows up an abortion clinic,
and they rejected me for it. I've done it. I'm homophobic because I did it. Because I said it, I'm homophobic. So I am gay and I'm homophobic because I have dared to question the LGBTQI ABCD community on one particular aspect about gay marriage. So I'm homophobic. But that's fine. You know, this is the thing about my audience, Joe. They found me. I didn't go out looking for them. They come back to the show every week because they like what I have to say. And if they don't like it, they vote with their feet. So I'm not here. Obviously everybody that is in this game wants to be popular, but for me it's about more than that. It's about walking away after I've closed the show with my morality intact and actually not selling my soul for the sake of getting an audience, you know?
I think that's great, and that's what makes guys like you successful. And I would try to believe the same about me. I'm not afraid of saying stuff on the show. I never I never mean to be hateful. I never want to hurt anybody, and people are going to get hurt, but I never do it to hurt anybody. And it's just to get you to think. Why do you believe? And you do that too. Why do you believe what you believe? Even when it comes to religion on Friday, I beat on my Christian buddies all the time. Stop using stop using Christian catchphrases. They're nice. They're good on plaques. They look nice on the refrigerator. But why did you say that? Why do you believe that? And how do you live that out?
Exactly. Yeah. Now, I want to change the spec for the last little bit of the show. I want to ask you, because I'm really interested in your opinion on this. I don't know if you heard, but this week the UK raised its terror threat level to severe in response to the advances of the Islamic State. And Prime Minister David Cameron announced that it was, for the first time in 3 years, raising the nation's threat level to severe, and previously had been at substantial. Now, a severe threat level means an attack is highly likely, David Cameron said, although he didn't cite specific intelligence. Now, the change was made by Britain's Joint Terrorism Assessment Center following ISIL's advance in Iraq and Syria and its videotaping of beheading American photojournalist James Foley earlier this month. Now, Cameron also noticed the British accent of Foley's killer in the video and said at least 500 people have now traveled from Britain to fight with ISIL in Iraq and Syria. Now, I don't know about you, Joe, but I think that, let me ask you first of all, how do you feel about the fact that the Obama administration has not upped the ante here? It's a twofold question. And are we any more prepared for attack than we were on 9/11?
We got another hour because, this is going to take some time. But for the current administration, well, first and foremost, I think the problem is that the president's phone is not working out on the golf course, or there's no signal there, or the battery's dead or something. Because, as far as the level being raised, we should have done this months ago, back in January. Remember the JV team we were told about that doesn't exist? They're actually quite professional. They're quite well-funded. And one of the things, I have a fellow on my show on a regular basis. He's a retired General Paul Vallely, and he'll come on and he'll tell me, Joe, it's easy to win these people over because they can't read. They're not educated. So when you have these imams, when you have these freedom fighters, if you would, in their eyes, telling them what the Quran says, telling them what their life will be like if they fight, telling them how much greater the world will be, the bigger picture. Well, when you have people that are well educated, this is all great stuff. This is all rah-rah cheerleading stuff. So it's easy to get them to wound up to believe in this kind of thing. Now, as far as getting people from all walks of life, including here in America, to go over there and fight, think of the dark place they have to be in to go over there after seeing what's taken place and want to fight along with these guys. I got to tell you, you asked, the second part of your question was, are we ready? We are so not ready. Actually, it's funny because my piece this week that hasn't posted yet is exactly about this, about how, who was it, the peanut guy, Carter and Clinton and Mr. Obama
the peanut guy.
have all. I haven't got much nice to say about him either. But
me either, guys, of late, to be honest. After him issuing statements about being supportive of Hamas. I mean, why is anybody giving this guy airtime? He's obviously a senile old fool if he can support Hamas, which is a terror group. I mean, what the hell next, What next from this idiot?
Listen, he builds homes for homeless people. Come on, he's a good old peanut farmer. Said something about Hamas. He'll say it again when he does his. He's doing a speech at a mosque in a couple of weeks. He'll say the same thing when he gets there too. But these
are we
guys
anti-Muslim then for thinking this? Are we anti-Muslim now then, Joe?
Well, we're Muslimophobia or something like that, or
right.
Islamophobia or something. I
thought that was something to do with cloth.
Gosh. We are screwed when you think about the people that have been pulled away from our military, that have been caused to retire early, and the people that we're promoting to the places that are important, to the places of authority. I mean, look, this president's got a problem when the current military now is starting to turn on him. When he said we have no plan, and we have two generals, one retired, one active, come out and say, whoa, we have a plan. We've always had a plan. This White House won't implement the plan. That's a problem.
So why do you think that they won't implement the plan?
Xander, when I started doing radio, I think it's coming up on 5 years ago, and he got, I think it actually, yeah, about 5 years ago, so he had just got elected. And I would say, look, you know what, let's give him the benefit of the doubt, yeah, he's a newbie, he doesn't really get it, yada, yada, yada. But now as the years have gone on and I've seen the action that he's taken, I don't think he cares about this country. And I think he thinks that we're too big for our britches and we've had too much power for way too long, and we need to be knocked down a couple of notches, and that way the rest of the world will see us as an equal, not the big bad, what do they call it, the big white elephant in the room, but we won't be the big bad bully in the room anymore. Now we'll all be on an even scale, and everything will be nice, and everybody will get along, and I'm sure Putin will come to the table and change his mind. And a weak America is an unstable world. That's really what it boils down to.
But we're getting weaker, Joe, and that's what really scares me. And on what kind of I consider myself to be fairly eloquent, but a few days ago, a couple of weeks ago, I heard this. There was a group talk on Benghazi. There was a panel, and on it was I can't think of the woman's last name. Her name is Bridget. Oh gosh.
Oh yeah, I know who you're talking about. Yeah, she was great. Yeah.
And her name will come to me, but basically, I'm paraphrasing, of course. But a Muslim woman said to her, she asked her a question along the lines of how bad was it the way that Muslims are portrayed, and her answer just resonated with me so much, and I want to share with the listeners very quickly, basically what she said, because I'm paraphrasing a little, but I'm saying what she said, but it actually really just encompasses my thoughts and feelings on it too. So this is what she said. Basically, she said there were 2 billion Muslims. No, there are 1.2 billion Muslims in the world. The majority of them are peaceful people. The radicals are estimated to be between 15 and 25%, according to all intelligence services around the world. That means 75% of Muslims are peaceful people, but 15 to 25% of the whole Muslim population is 180 to 300,000. No, that's million, isn't it? Sorry, 6
yes.
noughts. 180 to 300 million people dedicated to the destruction of Western civilization. It is the radicals that kill. It's the radicals that behead, a massacre. And it's the radicals that fly planes into buildings. Now, most Germans were peaceful, but the Nazis drove the agenda, and as a result of that, 60 million people died. Now, the peaceful majority are irrelevant in these situations. On September 11th, there were 2.3 million Arab Muslims living in the United States, and it took just 19 hijackers to bring the radicals to bring America to its knees and to blow up the World Trade Center and attack the Pentagon and killing nearly 3,000 American citizens. And she ended what she was saying with, we cannot therefore afford to be politically correct in all of this. Now, what say you, Joe? Does that hit home with you? Does that really sit well with you?
Yeah, I think she hit it right on the head. I don't think anybody could add anything to that to make it any better. We are so, and again, the political correctness, you and I fight this kind of stuff every single day on our, on my show every day, on your show every week. And the bottom line with it is that people find it uncomfortable. I did a piece about the Christian kids being massacred over there in the Middle East, and I put up pictures of them. All right? But now what we do, we put up pictures of things that happen. People are visual. Right. I got outrage even from people on the right saying, how could you put up pictures like that of those innocent little kids? And I said, exactly. I exactly put it up there because here's innocent little kids being killed, massacred, slaughtered. I don't care what word you use. And we hear nothing about it. And until you people stop getting politically correct, step out of that and say, I don't care what they're fighting for over there. If they really do believe that they're fighting for their freedom, beheading little children, cutting children in half is not. is not an honorable fight in any religion. If your religion honors that, then there's something massively wrong with your religion honoring the killing of little children. My religion says that little kids are to be brought to Jesus and not sent to Jesus by killing them. For his love.
You're absolutely right. And I think that the thing is that for far too long, and I think this is the essence of what Bridget was saying. I have to remember her last name. It just will not come to me. What she was basically saying was that we cannot afford to be worried about offending every Muslim in the world, but because some radicals that happen to be Muslims are attacking us and have plans to destroy us. I mean, what are we supposed to do? Just be politically correct and sit on the sidelines and wait for the bombs to go off? Hell no. That's not what being an American is about. Being American is not about waiting to be attacked. And we've become weak, Joe. I'm sorry to say it, but as an American nation, we've become weak. That's because the leadership is weak. And when the leadership is weak, the nation becomes weaker. And in the eyes of the world, America is a joke. Between 5 and 10 years ago, there is no way on this earth we would let Putin speak to us the way he has and do the things he had. We would have gone in there and kicked his butt. I think now, people are saying there's no way that this is fair or appropriate. We should get the special forces in and get rid of ISIL, get rid of ISIS, get rid of Hamas, and get them off the planet. I'll probably have a death threat next week from Muslim fundamentalists. But hey, welcome to Blog Talk, Joe.
Here's the deal. Everybody needs to understand that there are radicals in every group. I'll even pull up on the Christian side. I say, look, the guy that blows up the abortion clinic in the name of Christ, I don't know what Christ he's talking about. The guy that shoots the abortion doctor in the name of Christ, I don't know what Christ he's talking about. That's not my God. And I'm willing to come out and say that a million times over, and I'm willing to stop that guy and help put that quote-unquote Christian brother in jail. I don't have a problem with that. You don't see the same outcry on the other side. That's part of what scares me. And we are afraid to call it like it is. And I do it on the show all the time. I have a friend of mine that's a Muslim. A close friend of mine that's a Muslim. Two of them. One is in the service, and he'll denounce it. One is a professor of Islamic studies, and he'll denounce it. But they're too far and few between. That's the big part that scares me.
I was watching some video footage as part of the research for this segment, and they interviewed some British Muslims who basically were saying exactly the same thing. How you shouldn't be doing, this is not in my name. This is not what being a Muslim is about. And obviously the difference is these are British people that have grown up British, that have grown up in the United Kingdom, blah, blah, blah. So they're going to have kind of like a different view on it. And I'm sorry if some Muslims get offended by this. But I don't consider that every Muslim is a terrorist or as a radical, because most of them, 75% are just like you and I, want to go to work, want to pay their bills, want to watch TV on a Saturday night and go for a movie and whatever, go to a movie and whatever else, just like the rest of us. But there are a percentage of them, 25% of them, who are out there to destroy us. Just as I just found her last name is Bridget Gabriel. Thank you for allowing me to steal your statistics and share them. But she's exactly right. And if we just sit by and be namby-pamby and say nothing, to me it's no different than when the Nazis were destroying all the Jews and everybody that they disagreed with. People sat by and said nothing. And if we sit by and say nothing any longer, we're going to end up waking up one day in an America that we don't recognize. It's already beginning. And the reason why we won't recognize it is because we have been overrun with namby-pamby politics that make us unsafe and make the country a worse place to be. But that's just my opinion.
And again, I don't even think you took a breath of that whole thing. That was pretty cool. But you know what? How do we stop how do we? I shouldn't say stop. I should say, how do we start getting Americans to realize it's okay to say something? It's okay to have a difference of opinion. I don't know if you know this. He's a little off, but he does these interviews, and he does them mostly in California at the beach and at malls. His name is Mark Dice. All right. Now he's a little crazy when it comes to the Illuminati and all that other stuff. I don't line up with his agreement there. But he does things like he goes out to the pier in California and he says, will you sign my petition to suspend the First Amendment, because Obama really needs to be able to get his agenda across, and while we have Republicans and conservatives slowing him down, it's not going to work, so we have to suspend the First Amendment. Would you sign it? The amount of people who sign that document of his, it's just astounding. And you should hear the comments they make. They don't understand the law. They don't understand this country. It scares me. And even our founding fathers knew if we had an ignorant, an ignorant electorate, we were screwed. And that's what happened. We've got to that point now where these people are so dumbed down. Most people are so dumbed down educationally. They don't know how the process works. That's what our real problem is.
And I think that, you see, I have to say that I was one, I don't consider myself to be dumb at all, but I was one of the people that from the beginning supported Obama because his ideologies were pretty sound. But ideologies and actually backing up with action are two totally different ends of the spectrum.
Oh, yeah.
Because I can, I say every week, Joe, I'm going to get to the gym 5 times this week. I'm going to lose 3 pounds this week. I'm going to eat better. But by the end of the week, I've been to the gym once or 0 times. I've eaten far more than I should, et cetera, et cetera. I can have the sentiment to do it and make the change, but whether I do it or not is actually a different matter. And
sure.
In the first 4 years, I supported President Obama and his administration, and I was quite prepared to stand by him all the way. But it gets to a point where you cannot keep saying, I'm blaming the previous incumbent. He inherited all the debt. I've run out of excuses for him. And I'm racist now for saying that. I'm anti-African American for saying that. I'm now a Republican because I've said that. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a conservative. I happen to associate with a lot of the ideologies of conservatism. I consider myself to be a libertarian, but these are all just labels. What I feel and what I put across in my life and my work are right from the heart. And if I don't like it, I will say so. Oh, I'm going to get lots of angry emails this week.
Yeah, good for them. Why can't we start off with this? Why can't we start off with, you're an American? How about that?
Yep.
You're an American that has a different point of view than I have. That's where we screw things up. It's like if you're not a Republican or a Democrat, depending on what side you're on, right? You're all screwed up, and you shouldn't even have a right to vote. Well, when did that happen? Again, that's the part that bothers me. I don't believe. We see some nuts out there, but the reality is I've got friends that are Democrats. We are very close in our beliefs. I got guys I sit next to in church that are Democrats, all right? The only difference is usually it has to do with, social issues or paying for certain things through social issues. And, I can get in a spiritual conversation about that, but what good is it going to do me? The reality is that most of these guys love this country. They want to help other people out. I get all of that. So there's nothing wrong with any of that. But with the hardcore righties and the hardcore lefties, when they come together, it's a hateful battle. There is no middle of the road for them.
No. I think that's just as concerning whether it's on the left or the right, and I get confused as to what is the left and the right nowadays. I really do, but I think that it's just as displeasing on both sides. I mean, I know some Republicans who are vehemently against reaching out to the other side of the aisle. Not even about bringing them over, but actually finding, because I've had this philosophy for a long time that the imperative has to be we have to look at what we do agree on to have a something to build upon, Because if we've got that, we've got somewhere to work from. But there are some Republicans that I've met, and Democrats, so no in between. There are some Republicans who Obama can't do anything right, and there are lots of Democrats where Obama can't do anything wrong. So I can't work with either of those types.
No.
But there are people like you, Dr. Gina, et cetera, who are intelligent enough to be able to see all sides of the situation rather than just what we are fed from our party.
I want to give you something came across the one of my email addresses today, and it was, do you know who Dana Lash is? Out of she's with the Blaze now, but she used to be out of St. Louis, and she was on the radio every day. And
is her last name spelled Loesch?
Yeah. They pronounce it Lash, and she's, when you see her, she's pretty hardcore, and she was a Tea Party founder out there in St. Louis, or one of them, and she's just a hardcore pundit. All right, she came out with a piece. That I thought was great. She said, "Look, I've come to the point in my career and my life and what have you that I realize we're not fighting against people." And then she quotes Ephesians out of the Bible. She says, "For we don't wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, and against the cosmic powers over this present darkness." And it's all about the spiritual forces of evil. So basically what she's going through is saying, look, you don't hate on that person. You don't hate on some of the things that are going on. You hate on what's driving it. And ultimately, all it boils down to, the evil that we know is the devil. Wants to turn this world upside down and make it nasty. So, one of the things that we forget, we think we have to come out with swords drawn and everything else. Pray for your enemies, and you pray for your enemies to see the truth. You pray for your enemies to be at least open to speaking with you or somebody that can reach them. And I think that we're seen as guys like you, guys like myself, and girls like Dana. They're seen as haters, just nasty right-wing haters. How can you be a hater if you're praying for your enemy?
Well, I actually don't think you can, but it comes back to this ideology of late where that if you don't agree with everything that I say, that you're a hater or a phobe. I actually wrote about this a couple of months ago. I was calling out the Xanderphobes because using that ideology, everyone that disagrees with me, you're Xanderphobic, and people were doing hashtag Xanderphile, which I thought was kind of really nice, but. I think we got to get away from that. We're actually, I think that we're societally encouraged to see things that way, because I do think that there is a kind of there is a thread that runs through all of the parties that kind of want to encourage misinformation, and that scares me somewhat, because we shouldn't be wanting that. We should be wanting to base it all on what is true and what is correct. And so what if we don't agree on every point? We have to have a point to work from and make this country the greatest once again. And I'm not sure how we're going to do that, but I think that we have to do it together rather than we have to be unified rather than be kind of split apart by the tiniest little difference.
You got to get that point across that you just made, and you're a better man than I if you can figure this out. But how do you get the point across to those who aren't in agreement that it's okay not to be in agreement? It's okay to be able to have a healthy, you've got to reach out to the people on you say you're more libertarian. I've got to reach out to the people that are more on the right and say, guys, we are not right all the time. And the only way to have an open, honest conversation is to at least give credit to the person who's having the other argument with you, that you make some valid points. Here's how I approach it. That's the only way you're going to get this conversation. And you got to stop putting your finger in people's faces and go, you're wrong, you're an idiot, and you shouldn't be allowed to vote. You're done at that point.
Wow. Yeah. I think we've kind of all done it, but in answer to your question, Joe, this is my response to that, and it's been a big learning curve for me. I don't know if you know about how I got to be friends with Gina, but basically it was when she was on Wife Swap. And I didn't like a couple of things that they'd said, but they'd edited it in a way to make her seem a certain way, and she just wasn't like that at all. But anyway, to cut a long story short, that she was kind of really, she was really a big part of my my evolution. And the thing is that I think we have to lead by example. And if we do respond in those ways and say you don't know what you're talking about and this, that, and the other, I would far rather present the facts and walk away and leave somebody to actually to chew those facts over. But I never was very good at that, and I'm getting better. And I'm able to be a bit more disciplined with myself because I have to be. I work. I have a radio show. I've got a TV show starting this month because it's September. Well, tomorrow, like next month is September. I really have to be seen to kind of like practice what I preach, and the only way I can see to do that is that I don't sit arguing for hours with idiots, frankly, anymore. I present them with the facts, and they don't have to agree with me, and that's fine. But at least you don't have to agree with me. But what I do demand is that I have the right to my opinion, and that's sometimes where I have to leave it.
Well, and you're right. It's one of those things where my hardcore right friends don't want me to waste my time with people on the left. They go, guys, it's not a waste. People jump parties or move because there's something that someone says, there's something they see, there's something that they thought about that party that they come to find out isn't true. Do you know how many people believe that the KKK, that slavery was kept around because of the Republicans, that it was because of the Republicans that women didn't have the right to vote? All these things that people believe to be truth because they get 140 characters or less of something coming down Twitter. But the reality is you and I know better. I mean, I heard that in your voice a second ago. It was the Republicans fighting for the women's right to vote. It was the Republicans fighting to end slavery. All these things that we attribute to the Democrats because they're for the people, but they're only for certain people. but again, not all of them. Seriously, not all of them.
Yeah, I see these memes all the time of people saying blah, 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 stupid Democrats, blah, 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 this. And I wish they would say some. If you add the word some, I am quite happy to agree with you that some Democrats are this or some Republicans are that, but not all,
No, I do agree with you. I find it irritating that you get to the point where guys like you and me have to preface everything we say. I'm not talking about all gay people. I'm not talking about all mafia people. I'm not talking about all Italian people. By the time you're done, the show's over, right? You think the people will get to know your heart after a while. And you just go, look, I'm not talking about all Democrats. My whole family on the East Coast, they're all registered Democrats. And so give me a break. I mean, we are very much on the same page.
And you sit down and eat with them at Christmas? That is disgusting, Joe. Hand in your GOP cards now. But on a serious note, we have kind of come to the end of our time together.
Oh, yeah.
I had a fabulous time today. I hope you'll come back and do it again. Tell people where they can find you on social media and tell them about when your show airs also.
Well, if you hop up on the website, you're going to find me at therealside.com. I simulcast on Blog Talk every day if that's your preference to listen there. We're on several stations across the country, but you can get all of that on the website, therealside.com. Like you, I have a live chat going on during the show, which I very much enjoy. It draws people in and it allows them to get involved. And again, you can find out the stations, the times, and all kinds of articles that I've written up on the website, therealside.com. And Xander, I always have fun when I'm with you, or when we're on the shows, and I bring you on my show. And I think I've even had people say to me, why do you make fun of him? Because I guess I use your catchphrase. What is it, the Queen of Media or something? Or New York? I don't have it in front of me
Queen
now.
Of all media. Hey, I say it before anybody else gets the opportunity. I make fun of myself, Joe. So it's absolutely cool.
It's great, and I say to people, I wouldn't do that to somebody I'd have on the show, but that's what he calls himself, period.
I do. I do, absolutely. Well, listen, Joe, it was great to have you on today. Maybe you should send copies of this show to those that are calling you homophobic, and tell them that you actually guest co-hosted on a gay person's show today.
Oh no, yeah, I'll lose my reputation. I don't know if I could do that.
Absolutely.
I'm going to actually put it up. I'm going to put it up on my website as something to listen to.
Yeah, I would. Yeah.
I will.
Me and the New York queen of all media. All right, listen, Joe, thank you so much for joining us today. Make sure you check out Joe's website, www.therealside.com, and make sure you follow him on Facebook and Twitter. The links are on the show page for today. So thank you so much, Joe, and we will see you next time.
Have a great rest of the day. Thanks for having me.
You too. Thanks a lot. Take care. Bye-bye. That was indeed the fabulous Joe Messina, host of The Real Side. Make sure you go check him out and follow him on Facebook and Twitter. And we will see you next time. Sorry for the problems with the chat room. We will get it sorted in time for next week. I hope you enjoyed the show. Thanks to Joe, and thanks to you for listening. Thanks a lot, and I love you all. Bye-bye.